practice for a minute, guys? Can everybody just wait for a second because we were just getting things finalized?
It does take a minute for it to go live. I don't know if it takes a minute for once people hear it later. I always have that weird feeling I need to check that out because it just like the eye just went on that says that people are coming on board.
Yeah.
Which is different than anyway. We are consistent in the mystery of Facebook. That's all we could say. It's always been a mystery to us and it remains so. Okay, so hi everybody. Fridays with Sue and Steph. We're happy to be with you again. And this Friday, it does feel a little bit like spring.
It really does. The sky is so blue in Cleveland right now.
Yeah, it's quite a treat.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're going to talk to you about this new book. The author is Michele Borba. We have interviewed her before. She wrote Unselfie, and now her new book is called Thrivers. And with the rest of the book is what? Do you know the next?
I know. Yeah.
Anyway, it's really about giving our kids the tools they need to thrive. Therefore, the name of the book is Thrivers. And Stephanie and I both, first of all, love Michele Borba, love her book. And it's just a little bit of a different way to look at parenting. There's no blame, which I love about her. She's so amazing. But also, she gives these 7 characteristics that are teachable. So it's not like, it's this growth mindset idea that you are not born to be exactly your temperament that you have, even though there's so much data that some of who we are, we're born with. But some of these things, the 7 things are self-confidence, empathy, self-control, integrity, curiosity, perseverance, and optimism. Now, and she even gives tips for what you can do. There's like, how many exercises were there? 300? There's some big number of exercises in the book that help you. Like one of my favorite ones is that one of the things to do for empathy is read fiction, which is like, it's just so fascinating because, and you can read it as a family, you can read it, you can, leave it for your kid to read. But the idea of reading fiction is that it opens up other worlds, which we all know about fiction. But the idea that it does give you access to more empathy because of that. And that's so easy. It's not like insurmountable.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Stephanie and I were talking about which ones did we do well, unwittingly, because we didn't have this list of 7 characteristics. And what could we have benefited from when our kids were younger, having Michele Borba's book? So I'd just say I would benefit from everything having Michele Borba's book. But what would be yours, Steph?
I think mine would be self-confidence and how she describes it about looking at their strengths. And I think that's such a great thing for parents because I think the default, at least it was for me, I don't know, the default for me is like, well, where can they get better? Instead of saying, well, they're already good at these things. And I think I had said this to you earlier, Sue. It reminds me of that, what we do as adults in the business world, the appreciative inquiry, where you're supposed to harness your strengths and kind of let the weaknesses go, like look at what you're good at and how can you use those to your advantage. And so I guess maybe that's why it spoke to me, because I'm like, I really believe in that method. And I thought, well, wait, right. Why are we trying to, try and backfill and it feels so much better to say, wow, you're so good at, this. Let's think about how you can do that. And it's funny. You just use the word unwittingly, which is such a good word. It's like an underused word. I'm going to use it more. But okay. Unwittingly, I know I've said that. It just came up with my daughter, who's 18. She was trying to write an email about something. She was asking a teacher about something. And I said, well, you're kind and you're reasonable, and that you'll use those things in your email. I mean, that's who you are. So it was funny, like now reframing that, like in Michele's world, I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much more sense. And that is what kid doesn't want to hear that? The things they're good at.
What human being doesn't want to hear that? Right. So everything we talk about in terms of relationships is entirely relevant to all of our relationships. Yeah. We just particularly think that parents of teenagers could use all the support that they can get. And so this could be applied to any age child, and to your relationships with friendships, all of those. I mean, you're not going to help them with self-control, but you could also tell your friend when you're talking to them, that you're so good at that, right? Like those are things that we all love to hear.
Oh, that's such a good comment, Sue. I hadn't even thought about that. And like, I mean, how many times do you bounce things back and forth with a friend? Like, oh my God, I don't want to say this to my brother, my mother-in-law, my da-da-da, and like to them frame it and say, but you're so kind. And you're going to say it with the kindness that you bring. Oh my God, that's like, it's so empowering, I guess.
I think all of this is actually, because what it says is that who you are today doesn't, if things aren't going well for you, then do something to change it. And I feel so grateful for that approach to life, because I think at some point I would have told you who I am. Mm-hmm. And now I can see as a much older person that who I was is not who I am today. And so why can't that keep evolving?
Yeah.
Okay. In my house, I'm not sure that I would say this would be in my order of priority of if I had these 7 characteristics before, but in my house, I know that the thing that we really rocked in our house was perseverance. And, I think it just comes because Dan and I are both kind of like these tenacious personalities that don't give up until it's done, which I think is very different than quitting. Like I've quit things, and I've quit things unabashedly, and my kids have quit things unabashedly. Like, you're done with that part of your life. When my son was done playing football, I was really sad, and I didn't want him to play college football, but a part of me wanted him to play college football.
Funny.
Like if I could know that the end of the story was no broken bones.
I was going to say safety.
Yeah, right. But the joy of being part of that whole family and experience was something I'd never had before, and I loved it. But he was done, and it was like, okay, I mean, he also probably wouldn't have had opportunity.
It's such a great way to end things, isn't it? It really is.
But he could have pursued probably some of the less competitive programs, but he was done, which was great. Anyway, so perseverance would be the one in my family. What would be the one that you would want to go back and redo?
Oh, I think the self-confidence one is what I'd want to redo. Because I think I harness their strengths. That's the one I would want to, right? Only since this conversation have I realized maybe I'm starting to do it. And who knows, maybe that's all new this week. But what we did well was...
I've been doing it great for 24 hours.
I have rocked it since March 10th. So, and then the one I think we did well was curiosity, which I give credit to my husband because he's a super curious guy. He grew up, we touched on this the other day. His mom's an entrepreneur, that curiosity, creativity, all the things I think, Sue, that you and I have unwittingly learned.
To use the word again.
To use it again. It's like when I was trying to use Dafka.
For all who are listening, that is a Hebrew word that has really no translation.
But I kept trying. I was so sure I was going to get it right. So, but this curiosity that I think that you and I can say 1,000% that curiosity, and maybe it touched on the resilience piece too, but that where you just keep asking questions and trying things different ways and looking at it different, that for sure is a muscle you can build, because I did not have that muscle. Like, I know it for sure. Like, I didn't have it. I mean, maybe a teeny bit as a kid, curious, but more curious in terms of like maybe in books and what these characters did, that type of thing, but not like how the world was or how the world worked. But Todd definitely has it. And I've seen it as an entrepreneur. Like, you develop it because you're trying to figure out every which way to grow your business, and, and a new problem, the problem of the hour, the problem of the day. So I think
the day we started, like literally the day that I think we got to our first magazine, and we're moving forward on that, is literally the day that we had to become curious, because we had no idea what we were doing.
It's so true. Yeah.
It's really true. Like, we were not held back by any constraints of how we'd always done it. And we could just kind of say, well, what could this be? It was all hopeful.
Yeah. It's funny. And I have to find it. It's in my camera roll somewhere. We took the kids, we did DC one year and did, I think, the Air and Space Museum. And there's a great quote in there from one of the Wright brothers. and it said something like he attributed his success to two things: being born in Ohio and having parents who fostered curiosity. And I loved it. I just thought it was so great. I'm like, okay, well, you can't control where you're born. But, and I'm not sure what the Ohio, I think maybe just a Midwest reference and the values in the Midwest. But I loved it. But curiosity is a gift.
It's like kind of the dinner conversation, right? Like you're sitting there and you're talking and like, I just love the idea of asking a kid what risk they took that day. Like, that's such a great one. In my house, I would say that, it's not that we didn't do a good job or anything. It's like this idea of optimism and talking about, and I think they all weave together. I don't think that they're as finite as, tick the box, we've done this. But the thing about optimism, in particular during COVID, is this idea that we can always address the problem from two ways. Like, we can always talk about what didn't work. And there's probably a place for that, but we could also flip it and just say, like, what did work? Or what would you like to see? Like, those questions are so different.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't believe it went down that way. That's terrible, right? Like, but it had to just be able to say to a kid, which, it's that kid might be in the throes of wanting to just be annoyed and angry and whatever. But even just asking the question, which goes to curiosity also. Oh, thanks, Heidi. Heidi said it's an awesome question. What risk did you take today? It's so not ours. We've heard it from so many smart people that I'm trying to use it as well. But it's such a great question. And it really, it sends your kid out into the world with a whole new perspective. Like, I should take that risk because there's no consequence to not doing well at it.
Yeah, it reminds me of two things. One thing I was saying to Sue, I think yesterday, was my husband is a big baseball guy, and he has always said to the kids, "I'd rather see you get thrown out stealing than not go for it." And think about, like, you have to get yourself excited and, okay, can I go for it? And you're trying to time it, and it's like that thrill of going for it. And, the other thing I have said to my kids very often that touches on the Michele Borba conversation is, if everything you've done has turned out really well, like everything, like, should I go out for that team? Should I, if everything resulted in a good outcome, you're not taking enough risks, because you should have things where you're like, well, that one kind of sucked. Right? Like, if everything, that's great, but then there's probably things maybe you should be trying, because that, batting 1,000 seems a little strange.
I think it goes to the idea of our expectations in our homes. Like, so, Kelly Corrigan, who I might talk about just a little bit too much, she had on her podcast that her kid, I can't remember who the conversation was. It might have been with my other favorite person, Anna Quinlan. And she was saying that her daughter got a 98 on something. And of course, when we say these things, we don't mean them. But she said, what two things did you get wrong? And, like, the thing is, I've said it as a joke. I've said it not as a joke. Like, it's just a funny thing to do. And that starts to set up this conversation around perfection. Yeah. And the other thing is, we expect that you will fail. We applaud it, right? Like, it's such a different approach. Anyway, you guys add in, if you can see, I tried to put in here, but it came up as a mess, the 7 strengths. But if there's anything that you particularly do well in your home or wish you'd done better, let us know in the comments. And just to circle around in case you Stephanie has something to say.
I just had a thought. I think we should, so it's funny, it harkens to the conversation we had with Zach and Hannah, Zach and Jessica, each of our kids on a podcast. But what do you think, maybe we can talk about it next week, what do you think our kids would say we did well? And, like, would they match us? It would be very interesting. Like, if I showed my kids this list, maybe we'll report back on that next week.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure I'm not sure I would have seen it as any kind of metric before reading the book. Like, I think they'd be like, I don't know. My kids would anyway. They don't think of their lives that way. They don't think of
Yeah.
They analyze my parenting like this. Mom, you remember the time you pulled over the car and you made Jessica get out and walk home? That's what they analyze my parenting as.
Same.
The single most traumatizing moment of their lives. And like, it's what you do at the time when you can't figure out a way to drive safely with a kid who's going bad.
Control. Right. Oh yeah. Gee, what do you mean?
Right. Anyway, so thank you all for being here. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Friday.
Bye, guys.